Hey guys, Jeff here, and today I'm going to show you everything I know and love about the Schluter Ditra membrane. This product is an uncoupling membrane for tile and is an effective waterproofing system for your bathroom as long as you install it correctly. If you follow the steps I've laid out in this video, you should have no problem achieving success with your project. Cheers. Okay, so step one when you're doing a project like this, you have to realize that it's all about the integrity of the laminating process of the Ditra to the plywood. So, in order to have any integrity, we've got to have clean, right? Free of dust, free of dirt. And generally speaking, when you're at this point of the construction, you want to be at a point where your drywall is finished and taped. And then you got to clean up your mud. I don't know anybody who puts down floor protection over their subfloor when they're doing drywall. It just doesn't ever seem to happen. So you got to get rid of all the chunks, obviously. Right? There we go. I know this job is a little bit, well, here we go. Broken off blade. Let's go. Next blade. I know that this job is a little bit out of sequence, and that's because we have videographers on site twice a week while I'm working. So traditionally, what you'd see here is sanded, ready drywall, probably even primed, right? You don't start tiling until you're ready to tile. And in a lot of projects, tiling doesn't need to be done until your walls are even painted, right? You don't have to be in a hurry to put the tile on the floor. It's something that you want to protect. So try to organize your project to a point where you're not working on top of your flooring after you put it in. I am doing things a little bit backwards. We're not just washing the floor, okay? We're not trying to open the pores of the wood or anything like that. What we're trying to do is add just a little bit of moisture to the surface of this plywood so that it doesn't suck the moisture out of the thin set too fast. And the best way to do this is to just lay it out and then cut it to fit the room, and then we'll worry about the details in a second. Okay, now it has these great little squares. So I want to go right up to here because this is the curb for my shower. Here's trick number one. Know where your curb is, okay? My curb is about here. So we're going to finish right on this spot, okay? So that's my mark, okay? I'll roll this back so my mark is on top, okay? And see this? Try to do this from the side a little bit. This is a great little trick when you're working with this product. All right, so we want to look at the roll here mostly. Okay. Okay, so here's my mark, all right? And I want to cut this, but I don't want to cut everything underneath. So I just put my fingers on each end, okay? And I'm going to just set the roll back. So now my cut line is right here. Use my favorite knife. This is an Olfa knife. It's not available in every hardware store, but you can get it on Amazon, no problem. Next day on Prime, do yourself a favor and get it, because there's other copycats out there, so the blades are available anywhere you go. And nobody's paying me to say that. Alrighty, so now we have the length of the room. So, it's okay to use a marker here. You got to be able to use your brains a little bit in a situation like this. We're going to be underneath the vanity here, okay? So there's nobody walking. So we don't have to be worried about having it cut perfectly. Like, this is not the time for laser precision, okay? We're looking at this, 4.5, 7.5, okay? So I'm going to make that mark. Feel free to draw on this. That's why we have these markers. They're amazing. 2 to 4, okay? 2 to 4, and we're going to go from here, roughly here, to roughly here, okay? And I'm just putting the tape up next to the fixture, okay? And then I'm going to, an extra 1/2 inch. Because these are set up so that we can bring it through the base of the cabinet, I can set all this directly on top. Now, sit, okay? Just cut it with a knife. You can also use scissors with this product. If you prefer scissors, that's fine. This is from my water supply for my faucet. I have a tub filler. Remember, we're going to be putting a soaking tub in this corner. All right, so I'm coming out here at 8.5. I'm going to go here, and then here. All right. Now, whenever you're working with products like this, remember, when you're doing tile work, you want to get about a 90% bond, okay? 90% is the goal. The reason we don't go for 100% as a goal is because you'll never achieve it. We're dealing with building materials that have variance and waves, and even in the manufacturing, the plywood can be thicker and thinner in places, right? So don't beat yourself up trying to be perfect. You just want to get as close as possible to perfect, and that's perfect, all right? This is actually here on purpose so I can pull my water lines through later. I'm going to have to work around this. All right, there we go. So we're going to dry fit this. Of course, nothing is square. Yeah, okay. All right. This is going to be a problem. Just this little hiccup. You see how it is bumpy? So I need to trim this back just a hair, and I don't want to be cutting towards myself. All right. So there we go. That's done. Next key. Take your marker. Mark your line on the floor. All right. Because when you go to put this back, and when you're adding your thin set, you don't want to make a mess. You can add the thin set just where this goes, because now you're going to have a mark on the floor. You've got parameters working. It's like coloring inside the lines. Now we're going to do the same with the next piece. You got to love the design of this product because it's squares instead of diamonds or circles. So it's really easy to measure and mark and cut square, because most corners in the house are going to be 90 degrees. All right. Okay. Okay, that's perfect as far as the length is concerned. Is we don't want to cut the edge here. We want to have the factory edge against the factory edge. You can see the edge through here, okay? So here's the edge underneath. 1, 2, 3.5 squares, all right? So I'm going to come up here to this wall, and I'm going to measure back 1, 2, 3.5 squares, okay? And I'm going to take even a little bit more off. I'm going to go to 4 squares. Remember, whenever you're doing tile, you're going to have some sort of a base trim to cover the gap. So your tile doesn't even go all the way to the wall. So feel free to give yourself a little bit of room to work with. We'll take out 4 over here. And because it's Ditra, like I said, you just follow that line. Now, because I've got a water supply here, I'm going to cheat. We're going to cut it on the ground. We're going to make this joint perfect. Now we're going to deal with the toilet and the water supply. All right? Obviously we have toilet bolts in the way. Making this more difficult on myself than I need to. Let's get these out of here. There we go. That's much better. Okay. Now, okay, this is really important. My flange is actually lower than my plywood right now. So I'm going to need a flange extension kit at a later date. So what I want to do is I want to mark here where that is. I want to mark here where this is, because I can see that through the back side. Not a bad trick, eh? There's the front. Okay. So there's my 4 corners. Okay. Now count the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11. 11. Okay. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And about here. About here is the middle. Here's the trick. Put your pinky on that spot. Make your mark right there and use your hand like a protractor. And like I said before, this doesn't have to be perfect. You're just trying to get as close to perfect as possible. But at least what that'll do is that'll keep you from making a monstrosity of a hole. All right? Try to keep your knife on an angle. So if you slip, you're slipping in a circle instead of slicing through the whole membrane, right? There. Now, that's not incredible, but it's not terrible. The toilet gets attached to the flange extension, and then the weight of the toilet goes out the front and around the rear, okay? So that's really where you want to be having that perfect. Now here, we're just going to cut that 2-inch by 2-inch, give or take here. And I know there's people at home watching this video right now going, wow, that's a lot of hole. Don't you lose the integrity of the tile? No, 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 no. This is an uncoupling membrane. We put the tile over top of this, we cut the tile a little bit more exact, okay? And honestly, at the end of the day, where you want to have perfect bond is where you're walking. No one is putting 200 pounds of pressure right here next to that water supply. Okay? We're not worried about it. Now, we're gonna mix our thin set, and if necessary, we'll wet the floor again. But now we're just gonna roll this up, take it out of the room, and be ready to bring it back in to lay it in our cement. Yeah. And if you're wondering, the blue tape on the string, because that's the cold line. All right? Always mark your hot or your cold. If you got electrical tape, it works out really well for marking the hot line. Okay, so here's our setup. We're gonna mix some cement now. I've got a really cheap drill, okay? It's just a corded VSR drill, so I've got a chuck on it. That's great. The mixing blade, get a paddle like this with the 4 sides that are square, okay? For the reason is, we're gonna be putting in water and then adding our thin set material to the water. And it's a packed dry powder, and it's been stored on pallets, okay? And it gets dry clumps. This breaks up all the chunks. If you get the auger style, you'll be mixing forever, and it won't break up the chunks. It'll just set up this cute little swirly pattern inside your pail. And then you'll start troweling it out, and you'll have dry chunks everywhere. And that's an enemy here, because you don't want to have dry spots. Dry spots mean you don't have the right kind of moisture. And the thin set we're using here is called modified. Now, let's just talk about that real quick. There's 2 kinds of cement, modified or non-modified. Non-modified is the original cement that's out there. It means no additives, okay? The modified means it has an additive. It's like a latex polymer. It's like a little glue inside the cement, and that helps to increase the bond. So the reason we want to use modified in this scenario is because we're trying to bond plastic to wood. So we need an adhesive, and that's what's in this thin set, okay? That's how your mind needs to understand that. There's different kinds of qualities. We're going to do a whole video on thin sets some other day. But so you know, there's been a lot of battle between Schluter and the consumer using the wrong kind of cement with the adhesive and without the adhesive, because they both cure differently. One cures in time, and if it stays wet, it gets nice and strong. The modified, it wants to dry out, and as soon as it dries out, the adhesive is bonded, and that makes it strong. So they work differently, okay? And if you use the wrong product in the wrong scenario, you're gonna have a failure on your product. But here we're going on to plywood. It's gonna suck the moisture out. We just added the water to the plywood so it doesn't do it so fast, that's all. We just don't want to have it suck all the moisture out before we put our plastic down. And that's really all we're doing, okay? So, Schluter, I don't know what, 10 years ago? They came up with this product. It's called All Set. It basically means you can't screw it up. It really should say Schluter, you can't screw it up, okay? If you're using their product in any scenario, this product works. It's a combination of both. Problem solved, okay? It's just a bag of cement. You're gonna go spend 10 bucks more than you would have, but you can't make a mistake, so I'm gonna recommend this product. I would say 90% of the warranty calls that Schluter ever got about their product line were because people used the wrong cement, all right? Now, on the back, it's got the directions, blah, blah, blah. You can read them and you can mix accordingly. Because I don't have a really good drill here today, I'm using a cheap one. I'm only gonna make a little bit of thin set at a time. And all I know is I wanna have it somewhat wet. Okay? Do yourself a favor, cut the bag right open. I've got like about an inch of water in here, okay? And that's nice. And yes, I know, cement dust is dangerous. Don't put it in the comments and tell me to wear a mask. For the love of God. If I was doing this all day, every day, I'd wear a mask. But I'm gonna do this just once today. And I've been driving behind trucks at the stoplight that make more poison than this. Here we go. All right. Now, because of this drill, it's trigger control, it's sensitive. So I'm gonna try not to wear this. Now, I only put in a little bit of powder just to get started. And I'll tell you why. One of the most common mistakes people make is they put in too much powder in the beginning. And the water that was put in that pail first is designed to make sure that you don't get big chunks of the product stuck in the corner at the bottom of the pail. Okay? So if you put in just a little bit, you can create a mixture of cement and water, okay? And that will set you up for success. Now you have an idea of how much more you got to put in. You can pour it into the middle, pour it on the top. It's not going to just drop into the bottom of the pail into that inside corner and cause you problems later. Now we're going to mix all this together, and that's going to be dry. Okay, this is a great teaching moment. That's too dry because it's shaky. Okay, now it's too dry. This is actually really good for stalling the tile. And I'll show you why. When you run your finger through it, it should hold its ridge. That's good for tile because what you want is a ridge. You want to travel a series of ridges that you can collapse. But with this product, you don't want it to do that. You want it to be a little thinner because we want to be able to force this into the surface of the cement, of the plywood, sorry. We want to force this through the fleece a little bit to get a good bond. So we're going to just add a little bit more water and loosen it up. Whoa, out of control here. Yeah, you see how the ridges are collapsing. That's perfect for putting down the Ditra. Okay, so when you're mixing your cement, remember, the process is simple. Put it in about 1 inch of water and a little bit of powder, okay? Create your solution so that you aren't going to get dried chunks in the corners. And then put in more powder until it feels like it's a little bit too thick when it's holding that ridge. And then just add a little bit more water, okay? Just a couple ounces. It just creates that solution. It's like pancake batter. You know when it's perfect or just a little too runny? It's only like a little bit of water that makes a difference. All right, now, time is of the essence here. All this talking and explaining causes me some problems. So before you get started, make sure you buy all the right tools. You see that? It says Schluter Ditra on it, okay? It's engineered to be the right gap size. I know, some people, they tell you, oh, you can use a V-notch or whatever, but just use what they say. Make life simple, okay? Because what's going to happen is you're going to be, oh, I don't have that one. I'll use the bigger one instead. And then you're going to run into problems. If you have too much thin set between your Ditra and your subfloor, you're not going to get the bond you're looking for, okay? It's kind of like drywall. Less mud is when you put the tape on gives a better bond than those commercial products that you're using. You're going to need a rubber float, okay? Or you can spend the $300 on the little cart with the wheels that you put a bag of cement on to flatten it all out. I'll show you how to use this in a minute because nobody, a homeowner, is going to spend $300 on a fancy ass tool designed for contractors who are trying to get thousands of square feet done every day. All right? Right here. All right? Now, best advice out there right now, use the flat side of the trowel, okay, and press this stuff in. Okay? I'll show you why. And let me clean it off. You see all the little thin set in all those little grooves? All that texture. Okay, plywood is not perfectly smooth. It's not like glass. And you want to force it in there. Okay, that's the finish. We want it directional troweling, but we want it like that. We don't want to scrape it clean. Okay, right? You want to put it on there and smooth it clean so that you have 100% coverage on that plywood and you have ridges there to push through the fleece. That's really the whole process, all right? So we throw it on, we flatten it in, make sure we're gonna get a good bond on the floor, okay? And then we take more product, we throw it on there, and then we trowel it, okay? And we trowel it lightly enough that we can't see the plywood. That's all there is to it. Now I know there, not enough product. Okay? And that's what it's all about. Here we go. Look it. I know. It's not a perfect world. We're going to get as good as we can. Now the contractors that are out there, they all have another trowel that's actually 1.5 inches wide for just such situations, okay? But here's a cheat for you. Okay, just put a dollop. You can flatten that out with your hand later. And I'll show you all about that in a second. All right, let me just get the rest of this thin set out. Hopefully, I made enough to get this piece of membrane down. Now, if you're working with smaller pails like I am because of your drill, that's fine. What you want to do is just start at 1/2, because you can roll the membrane up and then roll it out. And then if you don't have enough cement, you go mix more, and then you can roll the membrane back, and then you can do the adhesive and just roll it down again. All right? So, not a big concern. All right. Now, thin set. My God, the bane of my existence. I'm going to try to color in the lines here a little bit. Now, when I'm slamming this on the ground, I'm taking all this content and I'm trying to force it to the bottom of the trowel. So then I got something I can comb with, right? So, here we go. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you how to deal with this scenario here. This is unique because I've got this hole with the strings, right? And that's just because I have a tub filler. But you could have an obstruction there, kind of like at the toilet. You don't want to have all of this wet and then roll it all at once. It can be too much to handle sometimes. So, let's finish this. We're using a system to force our Ditra into this thin set that we don't have the luxury of when we're doing tile. Okay, now there we go. So let's bring in the product. I'm going to show you how to roll that out and lay it in place. And why I did this, because of these strings, I want to leave that area dry, okay? So I can press this all in, roll it back, and force the strings through the hole. I've got to maintain those strings until the very end. I'm going to lay that over there, roughly where it goes. Okay? And I'm going to put this corner where my black marks are. Okay? And then I'm just going to pull this straight on my black marks. And then lay it on my strings. All right? Take your float, and now gently press it in. Okay? This is just to flatten everything out. All right, now, over here, because of this little bump, I'm just going to use my fingers, okay? And I'm going to just flatten that out myself. All right, and that extra material, we're actually going to get rid of. There we go. Always have a sponge in the water next to your work site. You can stay clean. This stuff shouldn't stay on your skin all day long, okay? Now we're going to check our adhesion on the product, okay? So we take the corner, we lift it up. Now, you can see that I'm dry on the edge, okay? I actually don't have enough thin set in that corner, all right? And I still have ridges that haven't been collapsed all over the place. This is not bonded, okay? This is why they made that machine with the rollers, because people go gentle. Now, this is the traffic area. I can't afford to not have good bond here. So we're going to overdo it. This is how I want you to bed this product down. 2 hands and you lean on it, okay? So you put it down gently first. And now we want you to put your weight into the sucker. Okay, like you're trying to squeeze it out. Because you're not going to squeeze it out. What you're going to do is you're going to force it into that fleece. And you're going to get an amazing bond. Pay attention to the edges, okay? And you want to really run that sucker. This is a good aerobic workout, let me tell you. Oh. why they call this work. Now we're going to check our bond. That's what proper coverage looks like the stucco, okay? If you don't have the stucco, your thin set might have been too dry, or you didn't use enough weight to put it down. All right? Once you got it where you like it, you can take your trowel and clean up all your edges. Okay? Always clean up your edges while they're wet. If you wait till it dries, you're creating a lot of work for yourself. And that thin set could be in the way of something else. And you don't want to come back later on and be using a chisel. Okay? Now, here we go. Whew. All right, now, I'm going to show you how to finish this off. Okay? Right? There we are. That's where I'm finished to. I'm going to take both of my strings, put them in this hole. I don't have a lot of product left, but I'm going to consolidate it all into the bottom of the pail because I've been doing this for a few minutes. What I want to know is it still going to work? So I take my finger and I go through it. Good. It's holding up a little bit, okay? As it dries, it starts to get stiffer. Well, what that means is you got two options. You don't want it to dry out too fast, right? So if it starts to get too thick, all you do, because remember, we're just trying to make sure it doesn't dry out too fast, you can add a little bit more water to the next space. Okay? Make sure it's nice and damp. All right? And you're also going to have to use a little bit more force to press it in. But at the end of the day, this is all about making sure that when you pull up the corner of that mat, you're inspecting not just your skill at troweling, you're inspecting the quality of your cement. You're inspecting whether or not you put enough weight into it. Because unless you have that 100% looking bond, you have not installed the product correctly. Whew, okay. Remember, this is the science of working with a product that's been only understood and used well in the industry for the last 15 years, maybe. You really want to make sure that you're giving yourself a fighting chance by doing everything as good as you can, monitoring your situation. This thin set is left over. I'm not saving that for the next batch. It's too dry. And wherever that blob is going to be, it'll be garbage. And I don't want to have a floor failure because there's 3 square inches of bad Ditra that's allowing movement. That's just not going to happen on my watch. Now, the drier it is, the more you got to press. And for the love of God, if you find your cement is too thick, don't add water after the fact, okay? You're going to wreck the chemical composition. You're going to wreck the curing process, and you're going to have a tile failure. Just throw it in the garbage. Tile failure is never worth a couple dollars worth of cement. All right, there we go. Let's try this one. Barely even lift it. There you go. Perfect every time. Now, set back in again. This is the drain for my tub. Again, there is no weight here. Okay, we'll get rid of that piece. Now I'm not going to risk forgetting that hole. Now we're going to do exactly the same thing for the other side. Yeah, that's work. Holy crap. All right. And is it just me or is it getting hot in here? You're not even working. You got a sweat going. I know I'm being a little overly cautious and emphasizing, oh, the cement, the quality, integrity. When you're done with your batch, try to clean it out to something that looks like something like that, okay? Remember, our goal is 90%. So as long as 90 to 95% of your cement is in good condition, you should be fine. But the more you aim to be perfect, when you do make little errors, they won't cost you the whole job. That's the idea, right? So just because 90% is the goal doesn't mean that's where you aim. Try to aim for 100, because nobody's going to do every aspect of this, every square inch perfect. This is a great time to, before you mix more cement, wash your tools. You don't want to leave the cement on here because it does dry pretty quick, right? Even like the fact that I got to scrub it off there just tells you everything you need to know, okay? If your tools are clean, then you stay clean. It keeps a clean job site. And it means you don't have to throw this out in the garbage. You can save it and use it another day. A little hint, the Schluter trowel. This is a great thickness if you're putting small tile on a kitchen backsplash with an adhesive. So you can use this there too. All right? So if you're gonna get that handy, and you're gonna get the right tool for the job for doing this, then take good care of it, because you can use it again down the road. All right, we also wanna wash our grout float. Inevitably, a little bit of thin set ends up on the side of these edges, right? And we wanna be able to use this grout float to grout the floor when we're done. So, take good care of it as well, because crusty edges make for a lousy grout float. All right, let's go through this again. Yeah, and you don't need clean water, you just need wet water. All right, there we go. I can see the comments already. Oh, that water's dirty. I used the same water as I used to wash the floor. Okay? It's gonna be just fine. There we go. That's way too dry. The only time you can add water to your thin set when you're mixing is up until the point you let it stand for those 10 minutes, okay? So right now you can go back and forth, powder, water, make it perfect. Once you've let it sit and stand for 10 minutes, it's officially set up and it's already starting the curing process. Okay, whew. Here we go, just a quick recap. All right, make sure we all understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. We want to water on the floor so we can manage the moisture of our cement so it doesn't dry out too fast because it's using an adhesive quality, right? Yeah, that's nice and goopy, that's great. You want to start this process as far away as you can. Get it on the ground with the flat trowel. Force it into the plywood. Step one, right? Here we go. Then we want to start way back here, and we want to trowel in our thin set, leaving ridges. If you don't have ridges, you are not going to get good contact. That's a failure right there. Lightly comb it so you can't see the plywood. That'll help guarantee a good bond. Now, we're going to do this section here. One other thing you need to know, Schluter says that you can walk on that membrane right away. You can actually tile on it the same day that you do this. I mean, they sell it as a, you can get your tile job done so fast element. But for me, interrupting the drying process of this bond doesn't make any logical sense. Okay? done. Now when you're working and you make a batch of cement and you do a one whole row with the same batch and you treat the floor the same the entire process, you rub in your Ditra, you pull the corner, you make sure that your components of that assembly are working fine. Okay? You don't have to check over and over and over again as you go along. You just need to know, does that batch bond well? And it did. I also have a lot left. Now, one of the coolest things about this product is that the squares are designed to be structural element. This is actually designed to be full of the thin set. Okay? It's not garbage at this point. Because this is all set. You don't have to wonder, hey, can I use this product here? Right? It doesn't matter. Now, I don't like to walk on this stuff when it's wet, all right? But this is a structural component, and these squares actually have to be full, okay? It's not enough to take this and go, oh, I'm directional traveled. See all those little gaps? That's product failure, okay? You need to have those squares full. So what I like to do with my extra cement is take the time before I leave the room, before I start tiling, fill them up as much as possible with my extra cement, because it needs to go in there anyway. Might as well use it. And in my experience, people are more meticulous for filling these holes when they're not tiling than they are when they are tiling. Okay? And part of it is like kind of like doing drywall work. If you come at it from two different directions, you're more likely to fill the square. And there you have it. Now we're set up for success. I've used the majority of my extra cement. We will see you in the next video. And you know, if you want to watch me install the 2x2 foot tile in this room, make sure you subscribe to the channel. That video will be coming out probably next week. And then we can all watch it together because YouTube will remember to tell you about it. All right? Cheers till next time.